August 9th, 2013, around 1 a.m. A man calls 911 seeming panicked and out of breath. The emergency operator fails to ascertain the man's name or location, but understands that he seems urgent and ran out of gas on Highway 277. He asks for the cops and pleads, "Please hurry," before the line goes dead. Although his brother and police arrive at his truck within 15 minutes, he is nowhere to be found, and the negligence of the emergency dispatch leaves room for misunderstanding and assumptions to prevent finding him and rendering the aid he requested. The months and years following his disappearance have been littered with misinformation, confusion, and a lack of due diligence by the police. Was this simply an accident, or was this man murdered in cold blood, and his disappearance not treated with the severity it deserves by those who are supposed to be seeking justice for him? You're listening to Creep It Real, and today we cover the disappearance of 26-year-old Brandon Lawson.
Creep It Real is a weekly podcast where we present our theories of the subjects we cover based on our interest and research. Some material may be graphic and disturbing, so proceed with caution.
Otherwise, I sound like a psycho. I sound like a legitimate psycho. Okay.
Welcome back to Creep It Real Pod. We're back again this week with a true crime podcast, and we're really excited about this one. We're quite passionate about it. We've stayed up late listening to some audio on this case, and we hope that you guys find it as riveting as we do.
Yeah, it gets me a little heated, so you're going to have to, hold me back. I said earlier, you're going to have to hold me back on this one because I get ticked off about some of the the details, I guess you would say, of this case. But yeah, so let's just get into it. That's how we roll over at Creep It Real. We don't make you sit around for 15 minutes listening to chit-chat before we get into the story. So we today are covering Brandon Lawson.
I just feel like this is a less known case, and I don't know why, because it is so interesting. So if none of you had ever heard of this before, get ready.
Yeah, it's been covered by some other podcasts, but we feel like it deserves as much attention as it can possibly get, kind of like some other stories that we've told already. So on August 8th, 2013, after Brandon Lawson got in a fight with his common-law wife, Ladessa Lofton, he left the house. And this was typical of them, apparently. They would, if they got in fights, one of them would leave the house to kind of cool off frequently. So it wasn't like him leaving after their fight was so unusual. But on this night, it was around 11:53, and he called his father, who lives in Crowley, Texas, which is about 4 hours away from San Angelo, where Brandon lived, and said he was going to come drive over to his house. And his father tried to kind of dissuade him, tell him that's a long drive, it's late at night. But Brandon seemed like he was pretty set on doing so he hung up with his father, and as far as his father knew, he was to be expecting him in about 4 hours. So 45 minutes after he left the house, Brandon called his brother Kyle because he said that he had run out of gas on Highway 277 near Bront, Texas in Coke County.
At 12:30 a.m., Kyle and his girlfriend Audrey called Ladessa telling her they needed a gas can because Brandon had run out of gas. She said she was about to shower and go to bed and would set the can out on their porch. Kyle's check had not yet cleared, so he had no money to fill the can, but drove toward Brandon's truck to pick him up and drive him to the 24-hour Stripes gas station in Bront to fill the gas can. And then after that, he would drive him back to his truck and they could all be on their way. Around 12:34, 36, and 48 a.m., Ladessa misses 3 calls from Brandon because she had put her phone in the car to charge. And this is because Brandon had took off with the only phone charger that they had between the two of them, which I don't know how they survived. Every time my husband unplugs my phone to use my charger, I'm like, rah!
Yeah. I'm like, how do you charge your phone in your car without your car being on?
I've only seen one car do it, honestly.
I'm not trying to make her story seem invalid, but I just was like,
no, you know what? I don't know. Even with Kevin's brand new truck, it has to be on in order for it to charge.
I mean, maybe she left it on in idle or something, and it just charged really slow because she was just going to be asleep. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you don't have any other way to charge your phone and it's dead, you have to do something, you know, I guess. And if you have a car charger, that's your only option, but you're not going to sit in your driveway in your car just because your car is charging. So maybe she did.
Exactly. Okay. Well, at 12:53 a.m., after calling his brother, something happened that caused Brandon to become distressed and phone 911. In the call, Brandon is clearly out of breath from what appears to be running, sounds audibly frightened, and asks for the cops. He ends the call with, "Please hurry."
Yeah, so we'll play the 911 call later. It's very, I don't know, other than disturbing, I don't really know how else to say. It's just really troubling.
I got goosebumps right now thinking about it.
I mean, I don't say it breaks your heart very often, but like it breaks my heart to listen to that call. He just sounds so scared, and I really hate to hear it. Okay, so at 12:58, a truck driver supposedly called 911 to report Brandon's truck, which was parked haphazardly with its tail end partially in the only lane that was going that direction.
I do think it's a bit odd that he didn't take the time to pull completely out of the way, out of the road, and he just kind of haphazardly parked his truck right there.
I agree. I think we're going to talk about it in a little bit after we get through the timeline more. Because that's definitely makes me kind of question what was going on. Because if you were just like, oh, shoot, I ran out of gas, you probably would move your car. At 1:10 a.m., Kyle, his brother, arrived to Brandon's truck and found that there was already a sheriff's deputy at the truck, but Brandon was nowhere in sight. There was no visible damage to the truck, and Brandon's keys and cell phone were gone. Neither Kyle or Deputy Neal were aware at the time that Brandon had called 911 requesting the police and to please hurry whenever they had arrived at his truck. Supposedly, the police had not gotten that information for whatever reason.
So this, to me, is all kind of happening rather fast. The timeline isn't very spread out.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's not like he had 3 hours to derp around in the desert or whatever. This was all like within, 10, 20, 30 minutes of each instance happening.
Mm-hmm. It was a very short window of time, which that seems to be like a kind of a running theme with these incidents that we talk about. At 1:18 a.m., while they were talking to to Deputy Neal, Kyle received a call from Brandon, but he said that the connection was so bad, and that's been reported by multiple people that live in the area, that the reception in that area is really, really bad. And he said that all he could make out was that Brandon seemed to be running through and scuffling around in the brush, and that he said something about being in the brushes and that he was kind of distressed, and that he ended the call with just hurry up and get here and hung up.
Right. And if you look at the pictures of where he actually had pulled off and would have been running, I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a field. It's more of just like open range.
Yeah.
Desert.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was because we don't really know exactly where he was. Like, his truck was in one spot, but he might have been within 4 miles of that, for whatever. Yeah. I have also seen people say that, because he says wood, it seems like he says woods in his 911 call, and they don't think it looks like woods, which I kind of agree. But I mean, when you're panicked running through, it looks like it's decently high, bushes or trees and stuff, that maybe whatever word comes to your mind might be just what you use.
And I guess I've never been on the run for my life, so I don't know how you would formulate words and thoughts and ideas in that situation.
Yeah. And Audrey, Kyle's girlfriend, called him immediately following that call where he hung up with Kyle. And again, the reception was really terrible, and all she could pick up was, "I'm effing bleeding." So that's all she heard him say. And so we don't know why he was bleeding, but if it was just from scratches in the brush, I just don't think he would have even said that,
No, he must have been seriously injured
in some way
in order to bring that to a point.
Right.
Kyle thought that Brandon may be hiding from the cops due to a 2-year-old warrant on a minor drug charge that he had just found out about a week prior when purchasing a new truck. So Kyle made no mention of this call being Brandon to the deputy. And we'll talk about that later, because me personally, I don't think this was the reason why Brandon was on the run.
No.
Had Kyle known that Brandon called 911, he never would have assumed that Brandon was hiding.
Right. So that seems kind of like an obvious conclusion to draw.
Yeah. At 1:19 a.m., Audrey texted Brandon, "A cop is at your truck." So they admitted the following day that when Brandon had called Kyle when they were at his truck with Deputy Neal, that he had said he was 10 minutes up the road and was bleeding. This was not reported to Deputy Neal at the scene, which, wouldn't you want someone to know if your brother or your family was just so close by and they were possibly injured and needed help?
Yeah, I guess they, at the time, since they didn't know he called 911, they, I guess, thought that they were protecting him because they just had no idea what had happened. But unfortunately, it ended up, it's not his fault that any of this happened, likely. No. But it is unfortunate because it did impede the progress of finding and getting Brandon help.
Right. You got to think, too, like, is it better to have your brother in jail or is it better that he's dead? Like, you got to kind of... I don't think he was, like...
No, but I mean, I don't think he really realized the severity of the situation until the next morning, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So I want to emphasize that Deputy Neal was not responding to Brandon's 911 call, but the trucker's call about his truck being in the road, supposedly. Now I said that, and then I'm like, but at the same time, there are different accounts that have been given by the police department about that said that they were responding to his call, but it wasn't an emergency call, and multiple different people have claimed different things, so I don't know what to think about that. So maybe I have to just cut that out. I don't know.
Well, that makes me so mad because we've listened to so many 911 calls where the dispatcher doesn't treat it as an emergency that needs to be handled with attention immediately, and then someone ends up mortally wounded or... Right. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Like, we don't even know, and we'll talk more about this again. We're going to talk about a lot of this later, but we don't even know if his 911 call was reported to the police. We don't even know, really. I have to file a second FOIA request for this case, and we're probably going to end up having to do a whole other follow-up episode on it because I have yet to hear a response for my first one. So there's a lot of stuff that I would like to know about this case that isn't released to the public at this point that I think would help clear up some information.
Right.
Anyway, okay, let's get back to the timeline real quick and then we'll start talking about it. So according to the Observer Enterprise, which we'll talk about more later, which is the local paper, the 911 call that Brandon made was only reported as a stranded motorist and not someone clearly in danger asking for police assistance or that he had run into him. The 911 dispatcher repeated back, "Oh, you ran into him." So at least in the misunderstanding, perhaps, of the call, she understood that he had run into somebody. The dispatcher had to have at least thought that he might have gotten into an accident, and yet the call was still just reported as a stranded motorist. I just don't understand. So Deputy Neal put the emergency flashers on, locked the truck, and left the scene, scheduling a tow truck to come get the truck the following morning. And so according to reports, the deputy drove up and down the 2-lane highway and did not come across any people or motorists while he was looking to see if he might find Brandon walking up or down the highway. Yeah, so Kyle and Audrey left the empty gas can in the bed of Brandon's truck, thinking that if he came back to his truck, he'd be able to go get gas. Then they said they began to look for him with no luck. When morning came, Kyle's check cleared, and he went back to the truck to fill the gas can up. He left it in the bed of the truck again, and at this point, he began to become concerned and feel that Brandon had not been hiding the night before, but had been in trouble.
That is when Kyle gave the investigators the full account of the phone call he received from Brandon after he arrived at the truck when Deputy Neal was there. It was only days later when Ledessa was itemizing cell phone transactions gathered by the police in their investigation that the family realized that Brandon had called 911 the night he went missing.
So that was like days later they find out he actually had called 911.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
I kind of find this really interesting, and I think this totally obliterates people's theories that he was running away to start a new life or whatever, but there was absolutely no activity on Brandon's bank account or cell phone since that time. I think when you're running away, you withdraw all your money because you need money.
You would think.
So, yeah.
A week following Brandon's disappearance, a search was conducted with FLIR, the forward-looking infrared cameras, but these would only have detected heat given off of Brandon's body if he were still alive or very recently deceased, and would not detect his body if he had been deceased for days or the possible week that he had been missing. So kind of like too little too late at that point.
I'll be honest, I think it's lazy.
Yeah.
I do. If we don't find heat signals, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, lost. It's ridiculous.
I think it's lazy.
On October 24th, they did an extensive search and rescue mission. This is over a month after he went missing, and that did not turn up any sign of him. They were only searching within like a 5-mile radius of the truck, which... we find out soon that may not even have been where he last was. So then they really stopped. That was it for the search for Brandon.
A determined person can cover a lot of ground.
Or if you get picked up by somebody and are in a car, you know, there's a lot of ways that he could have ended up further away from his truck than they ever thought at the time.
Right. So interestingly enough, there had been when they send out and look for a cell phone ping to someone's location, the police report that they had signaled for one 30 minutes after he had called 911, and that it had ended up being about 3 miles from where his truck was. So if you think about that, that means he would have had to have run 30 miles in the pitch dark in the desert in 30 minutes away from where he was, if he had to have been running from someone. Mm-hmm. Brandon wasn't a small dude. I don't know, a 10-minute mile.
Yeah, that's I mean, I know that adrenaline can really give you some extra oomph, but I don't know.
Yeah. But what's really weird is when Ledessa had hired the private investigator and he had, I guess, close contacts with the phone company, they searched it and found that the cell phone ping had come from another location different from what the police had reported.
That's weird.
So
there's a lot of, that seems to happen a lot too, is there's just always a lot of confusing information about this stuff.
Yeah.
So. Well, let's give a little background information about Brandon, what his life was like. So Brandon and Ledessa had moved to San Angelo from Fort Worth about a year prior to his disappearance, and they had 3 kids together, and he had another older daughter. Brandon's coworkers had said that the biggest source of pride in his life were his kids, that he loved them tremendously and always talked about them, that he was a hardcore daddy, and those close to him were just adamant that he would never have abandoned them.
So Brandon was a stocky guy. He was 5'9", about 230 pounds. He had multiple tattoos, and he was last seen wearing a pair of camo shorts, a yellow shirt, and white 2013 Air Max tennis shoes. He often went by the nicknames Bo and Cephas, which is, my husband said, if we ever have a baby together, we're naming it Bo Cephas. So I just thought that was funny. So the thing about Brandon was he does have a drug history. He had been an addict. It was meth, right?
Yeah. I think his last arrest was for marijuana possession. That's what the warrant was for.
Okay, so nothing hardcore with the newest possession, but I mean, even the small town I'm from, meth runs pretty rampant, so it's nothing out of the ordinary. It sucks either way, but the thing is Brandon, he had been working really hard to get clean for this new job he had wanted, and when you see pictures of Brandon, nothing jumps out at you as drug addict.
Right.
Even past drug addict, his skin's clear, he's not at an unhealthy weight, he's smiling, his eyes are clear, he's got nice teeth. I don't see.
Yeah. They said he'd been clean for over a year at that point, and he had just passed a drug test to get the job that he had just gotten. So, I can't imagine that he would just be like he got the job, I don't need to be clean anymore, but who knows, I guess.
Well, especially describing how much he loved being a dad and how, much pride he took in his children. Why would you waste that and throw it all away and risk losing them and everything you worked hard for?
Yeah. We'll talk about it, but a lot of people want to use his past as a reason for him to have gone missing or act like he's just some loser drug addict who, was running from the law. And in my opinion, there is nothing further from the truth. That is just ridiculous. I mean, it really kind of pisses me off because it's oh, you have a past? Well, your future is
predetermined.
Yeah, predetermined and meaningless. You can't turn yourself around or even if you had a drug problem still, you're not worth finding or saving your life. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. If you have that kind of mentality, then I think I really want nothing to do with you. So I'm sure you're very affected by that.
Exactly.
So, now his truck was found within walking distance of several homes and Bront, which had a 24-hour gas station, as we had mentioned a little bit ago. So the Texas DPS bulletin for his disappearance lists Brandon as an involuntary missing person, meaning a person that is missing and not due to his own choice, such as missing due to an accident, foul play, or against their will. So the Texas DPS, Department of Public Transportation, gave that bulletin out, and yet we still have people that are out there just wilding on this crap and saying some ridiculous stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second, but
it seems to be a pattern that when something shady is going down, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it's very suspicious, that they just want to chalk it up as an accidental death or a freak disappearance or, we got
blame the victim. It's the victim's fault because he used to do meth.
Exactly.
But you know, I don't know why people like to do that, but I guess it's in the same vein that maybe they would say that we like to speculate and make conspiracies up, but I don't think that's the case.
No.
I just want the facts of the matter to be considered, and, you know, justice for people to actually be pursued versus just throwing them away like trash, which I feel kind of like the police department sort of did here.
Well, yeah.
Let's talk about the 911 call. So I'm going to play the 911 call for you guys, and you can listen to it, and then we are going to just kind of discuss. The speculation is all we can do about what he's saying and what, you know, was going on. So We'll come back in a second.
Hello? Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we just pushed some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got shaken to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me.
I'm not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? Hello? Hello?
So Cook County is a really small county that contains two tiny towns, Brant and Robert E. Lee. And their 911 dispatch goes to a nursing home where nurses answer 911 calls, and then they dispatch those calls to the sheriff's dispatch.
Which you'll definitely pick up on the unprofessional
Yes.
attitude in the call.
Protocol for 911 emergency dispatch was not followed in any way whatsoever.
No.
At this point, I don't know if the nursing staff, there was like a designated person that had to go through special training, or if it was just a nurse at a nursing home just answering the phone. And
Well, a lot of people, they'll get on forums and be like, oh, she didn't even ask his name, his location. Well, she wasn't a 911 dispatch. This was like, literally just some lady working night shift in a nursing home.
I mean, it was a 911 dispatch. Unfortunately, they weren't trained as though they were the 911 dispatch, you know?
Yeah.
Because it is a negligent handling of a 911 call where someone is clearly panicked
and in trouble.
He has a sense of urgency, and he's asking for the cops and asking the dispatcher to tell them to please hurry. So, you know, what we still don't, like I said a minute ago, we still don't even know if this call was actually reported to the sheriff's department or not.
Right.
That might be part of the cover up here, you know, but we just don't know. If the call is original and unedited, which I find to be a little bit questionable because, like, he doesn't state his name or his location, and I have to wonder, and some of the things he says kind of sound cut off. That could just be because the connection's bad, you know, or whatever, but it just sounds a little hinky to me.
Well, there's one thing that people argue too is that he wouldn't have called the cops and asked for the cops or whatever because he had a warrant out for his arrest. But you got to think, if you got a warrant and you're asking for the cops, you don't care. You want help. You're that scared that you're like,
yeah, something has gone wrong enough to supersede the fact that you have a warrant.
And if these towns are so small that they don't have a real 911 dispatch, like trained professionals to do this town is so small, and he has this warrant, and he's so worried about it. I'm sure they could have went and busted him at any time, found him walking down the street with his family, la-di-da. I really don't think the warrant was the forefront of his mind.
No, he wasn't. We'll talk about it later, but he wasn't doing anything in his regular life that would make it seem like he was either hiding or trying to outrun this warrant. Ledessa said, like I said earlier, that they found out about it only like a week or two prior when he got a new truck and they were signing the title over to him. They were like, hey, did you know that you have a warrant out for your arrest? And he was like, no. It was from 2 years prior, and that they had gotten a lawyer and were in the process of getting it handled.
Yeah, they weren't just ignoring it. They were proactively trying to fix it.
No, it's just silly to act like he's on the run. If you're going to go on the run, you're not going to call the police and let them know where you've been.
Request their help?
anything, you know? Even if you're going to try to claim that he was taking them to a place that was further away from him than he was or something, if he didn't call them at all, they wouldn't be on his trail for probably days and days. So give me a break. You know, it's just stupid. Plus, he told his father that he was on his way to his house, so he's already like established somebody who is expecting him somewhere, you know, versus
just taking off,
not having someone expecting you somewhere. You would just take off, you know, in the middle of the night, you just leave, and then you wouldn't contact anyone. You wouldn't contact your brother telling him you ran out of gas. You would just walk to the gas station or hitch a ride. It just doesn't make sense. So, and it clearly gets me heated talking about it. But so the things that we absolutely can determine from his call: he ran out of gas. He's in the middle of a field or whatever, you know, whatever he wants to call it. He's in the middle of some sort of field. He says no, he doesn't need an ambulance. He needs the cops, and he tells them to please hurry. So those are the things that like we can absolutely say happened in this 911 call.
The rest is really hard to decipher.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just his accent. Like you said, we don't know if the call has been edited. A lot of people speculate that he was drunk or messed up on drugs, and that's why he was so incoherent and hard to understand.
Yeah.
But
he's also running around, and he's scared to death, it seems. And I'm pretty sure if you tried to get me after I ran down the road for a couple of minutes to talk to you and I wasn't scared for my life, I would be huffing and puffing, whatever. I wouldn't be able to talk like I'm no runner. I wouldn't be able to talk real great. And if I was scared for my life, you know, if you're scared for your life, how do you know how you're going to talk? It's really annoying to me that he's coherent enough to like plead for the police, which you're probably not going to do if you're just running from nothing in the first place.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend too much time speculating on what he says, because if his phone's cutting out or the call's been edited or supposedly, oh no, not supposedly, the police never actually released this call to the public. For what reason, I don't know. We'll speculate later. But Ledessa recorded this call when they played it for her to identify Brandon's voice. So while I
think that's weird that they didn't give her an actual copy, that she had to use an outside recording device to record a recording.
I think the whole thing is odd.
I think that's weird.
911 calls aren't like private information unless there is something on that call that, like we learned with the JonBenet case, something on that call that makes it like with JonBenet, it was that Burke was on the call and he's under the age of being implicated in a crime. And here, what is it? You know, why is the call not released? They also haven't sent the call to the FBI for examination. And I would think that if you were really worried about solving the disappearance, that you would do a little more work to figure out what the heck's going on in this call, unless you're trying to cover up something.
Exactly.
So, which we'll speculate on later. But we'll talk a little bit about the words that he's saying, that he may be saying. Like I said, don't spend too much time. If the call is tampered with in any way, or even by the wind or the connection of his call, you know, he could be saying stuff that we just don't like. We don't even get full words here, and that's why it's hard to decipher. But it's also possible that, whatever. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. So what people hear at the beginning is a lot of different stuff. There's a lot.
Oh, I know.
A lot of people hear a state trooper just pushed some guys over, or they think it's state trooper, but maybe that he ran his words together and said staper.
Strooper.
I live in Texas. I can put on a good country accent here, and I've never heard anyone in my life say staper. But whether he says staper or not, I don't know. Biker is another one. Sniper, a tanker.
Yeah, like I looked up slang words for state trooper, and staper, strooper, whatever, straker, none of those came up. That wasn't even, I mean, it just sounds stupid to me anyway. Like, yeah. So.
And I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't think Brandon calls state troopers either. I don't go around saying state trooper. I mean, maybe there are people out there that do, but I call them all pretty much cops, yeah, exactly. You know? I don't think he's really concerned at this point with being like super accurate, unless there was a state trooper out there doing something illegal, or he walked upon something, a state trooper doing something, which I don't think they would be doing on a public road. I just don't think it's state trooper.
Yeah.
I think that's just people reaching. I kind of recently, just the other day, I was like, did he say like scaped, like, or escaped or scraped? Like maybe when he didn't pull his car over all the way? I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to tell on that. So yeah, it's like something just pushed some guys over or pulled some guys over, or I hear like preach some guys, you know, but like that doesn't make any sense either. So who really knows what he's saying at the beginning? I just don't think you can really determine anything based off of that, other than maybe someone push some guys off the road or something. I just don't know.
I think you had mentioned that this is a highway where if you're going towards a place, like both lanes are going the same way, right?
No, it's a 2-lane highway, 1 lane for each direction.
Okay, so that would mean that if someone were to push you over, they'd have to be right behind you, on your butt, on the side. So when you hear just pulled some guys over, the state trooper would make sense, but we're thinking like maybe it's a case of road rage and someone pulls up on the side of you. The last thing you want to do is chance it. I mean, you might get pushed over on the side of the road.
Yeah. So he says something like something was out there going towards, I think he says going towards Abilene on both sides. Because Abilene is in some distance from San Angelo or Bront. And just doing research for this story, I came across a message board where somebody who had gone to Texas Tech said that he was driving back and forth on this highway all the time when he was in school, and that he would do it late at night sometimes because he would be coming like from his girlfriend's house or something that lived in a different city. So he was taking 277 at night, and he said that there was this one evening in late 2012 when he was driving on this highway 277, and some people were driving in both lanes of the highway. So they're supposed to be going in opposite directions, but they're driving in both lanes going the same direction. And that he said they weren't, he was like, I would have thought that they were just racing, like teenagers racing or something on this like kind of desolate strip of highway, but that they weren't going really fast. They were just like driving at regular speed, and they just continued to keep driving in the same direction in both lanes of the highway, and it like really made him uncomfortable, and he was kind of freaked out by it, and so he just popped a U-ey and took off in the opposite direction of where he was going to avoid these two people driving in both lanes of this 2-lane highway. One's supposed to be going opposite direction, but they're not. So I don't know if that has any relevance to the situation, but whenever I heard that story, I was like, oh, that could possibly make some sense out here going towards Abilene on both sides, and maybe somebody got pushed over or something, perhaps.
Well, it's happening in the same year of this whole incident, too.
Within a year. Plus, think about... Sorry, I just thought of this, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget it. So if they were coming up behind him, then he would try to outrun them until he ran out of gas, and then pulled over as much as he could, and then bailed on the car, which is why he didn't make sure it was out of the road, maybe? I don't know. Just speculating.
Well, yeah. And so what I also had read in another message board is that I don't know how close, I didn't look at like a huge map, but I don't know how close this is to the Mexican border. But some people were saying that a lot of these roads are known for like drug cartel to use as like their transportation roads. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's it, because I think because again, the cartel likes it to be known when they murder someone and making an example out of them. But possible, not the cartel, but possible drug something shady going on.
He accidentally ran into. Yeah. So I don't know. Is he saying bikers? A tanker? I don't know. Just push some guys over. I stopped and some guys just pulled over. I don't know. Or just pissed some guys off. Like, there's all these different speculations. I'm just going to put them all out there. You are going to, we would like you guys to go take a listen to the 911 call and tell us what you think. I mean, it's one of those.
Should we put a link on our Facebook to like audio?
Yeah, we'll put some links up. Yeah. It's one of those things though where it's like, oh, I know if I can listen to it, I'll figure it out type of thing. And I like not really sure that's ever going to happen. It's so difficult to, I have like my studio headphones on. I'm thinking I'm going to get this because I have these headphones, these like special headphones. I'm going to turn the volume up all the way. I have this program where I can slow things down. I can change the pitch, and it doesn't make a lick of difference. You're still kind of like, Staper?
There's even people that have posted like on the message boards that they've been in audio for years and years, and they've even ran it through their programs and whatnot, and they're like, I still don't understand what these words are.
There's a website called Lost and Missing, and they cover a lot of different missing persons cases, and they submitted it to a aviation company that can work on audio and kind of take it places where I don't think just like regular old somebody with audio stuff on their computer can do. And they said it was too corrupted to be able to do anything with, which makes sense considering it's a recording of a recording.
Yeah.
But if we could maybe maybe get the original audio, you know, maybe there would be we could clear some things up, but that so far has not happened, at least as far as the public is aware.
Exactly. So we're kind of lost on that first sentence.
Yeah, whatever he says, I don't know. But you know, something was out there going towards Abilene on both sides. Something like that. Maybe he says there's one car here. Maybe. I think that's what he says. There's one car here, and then somebody or something, or he did, get chased into the woods.
This part is where we had talked about it was chopped and edited. It sounded like, I mean, if you're going to go into conspiracies and make this out to be what it is, where they kind of wanted to cut out that someone had been chased or something. Mm-hmm. But it really does sound like they got the first guy, or he got chased into the woods or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that it's hard to dispute chased into the woods.
Yeah.
At least you hear that. And if it's him, then here's the part where it gets freaky to me, because he says, no, we're not talking to him. I think that's what he says, something like that. No, we're not talking to him. But I don't know if he's talking to the 911 operator, or if he's talking to somebody that, what I have always kind of felt is like somebody asked him if he's talking to the cops, and he's like, no, we're not talking to him, because he kind of sounds annoyed. And I might just be reading too much into it, but he kind of sounds annoyed when he says, no, we're not talking to him.
Well, and
that's just my speculation.
Is this where like they talk over each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah, she says, "Well, run that by me one more time," and then he starts talking over her. And like you said, it sounds like maybe he had been talking to someone else that was there.
Yeah.
And then, it's almost annoyed. It's definitely exasperated. It's definitely, he sounds like, God, I just want this to be resolved.
Yeah.
He wants help.
He also sounds just like he says, I accidentally ran into him. So that's right after he says, no, we're not talking to him. So I wonder if he accidentally ran into the people he was running from. They asked him if he was talking to the cops. He says, no, we're not talking to him. And then he tells the operator, I just accidentally ran into him. I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking. And then he says, shit, here comes the first guy, or I got shot, or
they shot the first guy,
yeah,
or they got the first guy.
Something.
That one. But there's definitely, I do definitely understand first
guy. Right. So
he's not alone out there.
Yeah.
If it was a cop, wouldn't he just say the cop, not guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, there's a bunch of theories that he came across a cop pulling somebody over, that those guys ran and he was trying to help the cops, but I don't know. But yeah, you definitely hear first guy. So there's more than one other guy there with him at the time. At the end of the call, there are these like three mechanical noises, they kind of sound like mechanical noises that whenever I put them in my audio editing software, they look almost identical to each other. So it's like the exact same noise that happens 3 times. And I think it sounds like a car or something that maybe either is approaching, and like that's the wheels going over like rivets on a bridge, or
like a rumble strip or
something.
Yes,
like a rumble strip or rivets on a bridge. There is a Colorado River that's like a mile away from where his truck was found. Now people are like, oh, he was, he fell in a river and he got washed away. But if you say that, you most likely have never been to Texas on a general basis, because the rivers are not these huge flowing rivers. Especially that one is just kind of a puny little thing. If he fell in that river, he could drown, but you would probably find his body pretty quick. It wouldn't just get washed away to never be found again. This isn't like, I don't know a strong river, but it's not a strong river.
A lot of people speculate that those are gunshots.
Yeah, that is another speculation.
Being around guns my whole life, I don't hear gunshots at all.
Yeah.
They don't sound I could see why someone that isn't gun savvy would think that, but I don't hear gunshots. Like I said, I think it's a car pulling up.
Yeah.
Because of the timing, it's like, da-dun, da-dun.
Yeah.
Like the car wheels just passing over, like we said, the rumble strips or the line markers or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
And it could also be the sound of like, at that point, the operator's kind of saying hello multiple times, and he doesn't answer. So people speculate that maybe he put his phone in his pocket and he started running. That could also be the case. But that noise does sound like a car. To me, it just sounds like a car or something like that, pulling up near him or over him if he was under the bridge and he was trying to hide.
Yeah.
Also, I hear people say about the gunshot, even though I don't think it's a gunshot, I've seen people say that if it was a gunshot, someone in the area would report it. And I'm here to tell you that's ridiculous. I live in the country and I hear gunshots on a daily basis that I never think twice about, because people are hunting or shooting something on their land or just shooting. No, I'd never in my life could tell you what day there wasn't gunshots. You know, like it just doesn't.
Well, it's Texas.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like it's not, people aren't going to be, it's not in the middle of Brooklyn, New York.
Yep.
Or whatever, South Lake, Texas. It's the country. And it's a lot of like open land and it's hunting area too. So anyway, I really just don't think it's guns though. But so Brandon specifically requests the police on this call, which in both of our opinions, like kind of flies in the face of everybody that speculates that he was running from the cops or hiding. Like that just, like we said, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. In that assumption to me, you're just really wanting to blame the victim for some reason and you suck.
Well, the operator even asked, do you need an ambulance? And he says, yeah, no, I need the cops.
Right.
And a lot of people say that, it was him talking to someone else. But I think out of habit, people just do that. When no.
Or like he's expecting her to say, do you need, he's like, I need somebody. Because he seems very urgent. You know, like he has a sense of urgency about him. So he was just anticipating whatever she was going to say.
Exactly.
They also say that's a second voice. I think that's Brandon.
I don't hear that.
No, I think it's Brandon. Some possible ideas that maybe of what was going on. Would he be trying to push his truck over off of the road completely and got hit by somebody who got pissed off and came after him? Or was he running from somebody? Here's something that Shai and I talked about, that you get in a big fight with your wife, you're gonna be pretty pissed off and you're going obviously out to cool off for a drive.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you're gonna have some, you know, I'm sure we can all relate to being pretty pissed off and then going out and driving and getting easily furious with a car.
Yeah.
Could he have gotten pissed off and like flipped off somebody, or, you know, just kind of got a little road rage with the wrong person and had to end up kind of trying to get away from them, but he didn't have enough gas and pulled over as much as he could and bailed.
Right.
That to me sounds pretty viable considering his car's halfway in the road. Something happened where I don't think he was like, la-di-da, ran out of gas, I'm gonna leave my car in the road. You know, I think he would have probably tried to push it, unless you just can't do it by yourself. I don't know.
Well, also too, you gotta think like what types of people, not speculating like people's character, but who's out at that time of night just driving on a country road, unless it's the cops patrolling for people out up to no good.
Yeah.
Unless you're just coming home from a work shift,
or just cruising at night, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
I have known people to cruise around and drive. I have done it.
Well, I mean, we used to do it when we were younger kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see I guess he wasn't very old. It really kind of bugs me to think that he was only 26 years old when all this happened.
Right.
Because he was so young.
So his labored breathing really sounds like he's running away from somebody. Or maybe he was injured, like he got hit. He was out of breath. He obviously couldn't speak or think clearly. If he was running from someone, that would kind of...
Well, I was going to say, if he was that injured, wouldn't he have requested the ambulance when the operator had asked about it instead of just asking for the cops?
Well, you would think so, but what if he was more worried about his actual life than whatever his injury was?
Yeah.
You know, that's possible too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Obviously, also, he was like struggling to vocalize that what he had seen, like something he had seen, was causing him to be disturbed enough or panicked enough to not really be able to think clearly, in my opinion.
You know, a lot of people, they were saying that he was incoherent, like we mentioned before, because he was on drugs or drunk or whatever, but I don't think that was the case at all. I think he was just tired from running. I mean, clearly he wasn't like in shape at 5'9", 230. That's a pretty hefty guy. And not saying he was fat, but if you see his pictures, he definitely wasn't an athlete.
He wasn't like a lean, mean running machine or anything.
We don't think he was under the influence at the time. Like we said, he had just gotten clean. He got that new job. He had 4 kids to support, a wife.
Ledessa said that when he left the house that he wasn't drinking or on drugs. And the timeline doesn't leave a big window there for him to have gone and gotten messed up on whatever substance you want to claim he got messed up on before running out of gas and calling his brother.
Right.
You know, it just doesn't, to me, people just want to like immediately go to that because they, you know, blame this whole situation on his past.
Yeah, right.
So we would like to know if the truck driver who called 911 about the truck being in the road was ever interviewed by police.
That would have been very useful, especially is there a record of that phone call is that one available to the public or no?
No.
Why wouldn't it be?
I don't know.
It was just a routine 911 call.
Good question. There's definitely a lot of things that need to be FOIA'd.
Well, I'm not a trucker, but I'm sure that there's calls all the time about, and I don't know, maybe they call people all the time about vehicles being left and stranded on the road, especially if you're a trucker and you see a car or a truck halfway in the road. If you plow through it, it's going to cause a lot of damage. You would want them out of the way. It's dark out. You would not see it.
Yeah, really. It's a hazard. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so here's the question I really want to know is, did the dispatcher relay Brandon's 911 call to the sheriff, or did she only tell him that a motorist ran out of gas per the Observer online newspaper?
Oh, that lady.
Yeah. He asked for the cops and told him to please hurry. So, like, I just don't understand. If she didn't send it on, what in the heck is going on? If she did, what in the heck were the police doing?
Apparently, according to speculation, they were chasing people and shooting them in a field. But that's just speculation.
Yeah.
They were busy. So we have to ask, was Brandon walking toward the direction that his brother would be coming from as opposed to waiting at the car?
Which that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But it also seems like, I don't know, would he be doing that? I don't know.
No.
Because, like, could he get picked? I just don't, because, like, first of all, you're safe in your car just waiting for your brother. But at the same time, I also know that you have, like, an anxious mood going on. You don't necessarily just want to, like, sit in your car hanging out. Maybe he thought, like, I'll just walk towards the direction he's coming from. I'll meet him and we won't have to drive as far. And I'll at least get some fresh air. And
I don't really know any grown man that couldn't push his truck a few feet off the road. I don't really see that as being an impossible feat of strength.
Right. It does make it seem like he really kind of just bailed out of his car pretty quick.
Yeah. I feel like we were saying, it just seems a little bit off because, you know, if I had to pull over and ran out of gas, you would want to get out of the way as much as possible. You could be hit. Yeah. Car could be hit. You're putting a lot of things in danger here.
He did take his keys with him, so he at least had some time to take his keys out of the ignition and put them in his pocket. I just wonder, was his door still open or was it closed?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of trying to picture in my head. Like, was he just literally bailing out and took his keys so that nobody could take his car? Because maybe he planned on coming back or something to it so he could get away.
Exactly.
Or,
like he could like circle around and come back or something.
I don't know. And I guess we will never know.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the 911 call. Obviously, it would help big time if we could get an original file of the call. I'm not sure why the Coke County Sheriff Department hasn't released that call, but that's all we can do at this point is just kind of speculate about what he was saying and what was going on. We don't really know.
And again, we will link on our Facebook to the call so you guys can listen, and then please leave us your feedback because
I'm super interested to know what everybody thinks that he's saying. So immediately following the disappearance of Brandon, a press release stated that a felon was on the run.
Right.
That in itself just pisses me off. I'm just saying I'm pissed off about everything on this, but that immediately shaped the opinions and reactions and response of the citizens of Coke County.
Yeah, you think felon on the run.
You're like, oh.
You think some guy's dodging police.
Right. There's somebody running from the cops who has just committed some terrible aggravated assault and I'm in danger. You're not thinking like there's a father of four out missing somewhere who called for the cops to help him and never received help from the cops, you know?
Well, it's like they totally are so unempathetic to the fact that this isn't just his life. This is like 4 children. This is, I mean, she was a common law wife, but they had been together
10 years.
This is, I mean, these kids now have to grow up without a father, not ever knowing really, not yet anyway, what happened to him, no closure.
Right.
It's so insensitive.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. It is. But they also wouldn't allow the family to participate in any of the searches that were conducted for some reason. And his father was even told one morning when the family was like, I'm going to just search on my own then. Obviously, you can't go on private property. But the sheriff told him that he would be arrested if he stepped on anyone's land. And the sheriff McCutcheon, he told the family that he did not want a 3-ring circus in his county. So that's cool.
Well, and then I think I heard somewhere that he had been out on a 4-wheeler or something, just searching around, and the cop was driving around, and when he asked the cop, what are you doing? He was like, oh, just making sure that you're not stepping foot on any land that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So they're like watching the family
right
now, making sure they're not snooping.
Right. Yeah. There's something odd about the way that the citizens that owned the land surrounding that area, some of them wouldn't allow searches to be conducted on their land, which I kind of understand. It's a little bit of an invasion of your privacy.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about the life of a man who has gone missing, I would think that you could have some compassion for him and his family and allow the people to search on your land. They're not looking for, your moonshine distillery or your weed grow operation. They're looking for a missing person. So, yeah, right. So, Ledessa had to pay out of pocket for a private plane to fly over to search for Brandon, which didn't result in anything, but I can't even imagine how much that costs. Yeah. That's not cheap.
She also, like I said earlier, because of the whole cell phone ping thing, she had paid for a private investigator too, because the cops just simply were not doing their job.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, nothing of real substance has come out of any investigation. We already talked about how his cell phone had pinged about 3 miles from where his truck was found. Now, I guess there's some discrepancy on where actually it pinged, but it pinged. And they have not done any searches around that area 3 miles away from his truck at all. And I can say, just from my own personal research of missing persons cases, that people's bodies are found in places where they have searched multiple times, and years, months, whatever later, the missing person's bodies have been found in places that's been searched already. So it's possible that we could still find his body if there would be actual searches conducted to this day.
Right. And a lot of the people have just chalked it up to the wildlife getting a hold of him and destroying all evidence, the wild hogs, coyotes, and whatnot, even rattlesnakes, which I don't see a rattlesnake eating a human being. And then I actually asked a couple people about feral hogs, and yeah, feral hogs would eat humans, but they wouldn't eat the clothing, they wouldn't eat his cell phone, they wouldn't eat his car keys. Those things would have been left.
And I think even some bone would be left, and there would also be a bloody mess somewhere left. It's not going to be, they don't just cleanly eat an entire person whole.
This isn't, what's that movie, Hannibal?
Oh, I don't know.
Where he raises the pigs to eat people.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Carnell.
Okay, that happened on Deadwood too. They fed bodies to the guy that had the pigs, but...
Yeah, but I don't think pigs eat teeth, I read, or something, and I don't see them munching on an entire human skull, so...
Well, and also, obviously, it's possible he was knocked unconscious in some way and left out there, and then they ate his body.
Yeah.
As terrible as that sounds. But wild hogs are not just going to attack a grown man that can defend himself either. So if he was lucid enough to make a call and run, I don't think that wild pigs are just going to be hunting him down like some ruthless serial killers or something.
Yeah.
I have wild hogs all around my house. I'm not getting attacked on a daily. I walk at night. I feel like when you don't know certain aspects, if you're not too familiar with hogs and everything, that you think, and coyotes also are not, they're pretty scrawny little things. They're not like giant wolves.
Yeah, they're rather skittish too. They're not gonna, I mean, if you were injured and on the verge of dying, possibly, but if you're able to stand up and yell and scream, I mean, I've been on many coyote hunts and they run away. They don't stick around or try to attack.
I just don't see that. If his body were left by someone else who had injured him or murdered him, then that perhaps could have happened. I still think you would find some traces of him. He had a cell phone on him. He had car keys on him. Those things are not going to be ingested by an animal. His shoes. It's just a matter of, and I think in that Ledessa and his family believe the same thing, that a thorough enough search has not been done in the area where Brandon's body may be. And unfortunately at this point, that's what we're dealing with here, is finding his remains and not finding Brandon.
This wasn't like a heavily wooded area too. If you look at the pictures, it's not like a dense forest where an overhead plane is not going to be able to see anything. It's desert.
There's bushes and shrubs and whatnot, but I mean, if they could do a decent search, I just don't think it would.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is his family wants to get some drone searches going, and they just can't can't get law enforcement to agree, and they have to. Yeah. So unless a private person, I guess, funds it, but I'm pretty sure that's also not really cheap. And Ledessa has been left to support 4 children on her own. I don't think she has a ton of money to spend, on all sorts of different searches that law enforcement really should be spending themselves. But anyway, let's move on to talk about Melinda McCutcheon, the sheriff's wife who runs the only paper in town, the Observer Enterprise. Her and her husband bought that paper in 2010, which I can't imagine how that's even allowed to happen when you are married to the sheriff. How the sheriff can own the only paper in town, I don't know. But she is a hag. I'm gonna go out and say it right now.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's any coincidence that she happens to own the paper and run it. I know that I was watching this guy talk about this case, and he said, maybe her dream wasn't to own the only paper in the town, and she's just this salty woman with no care in the world but to just sell papers now because...
Well, Melinda McCutcheon took it upon herself to write extremely inflammatory articles that stated that Brandon was running from a warrant, that law enforcement concludes that man, being Brandon, is not in Cook County. She wrote this in the paper. That's a misleading title in itself because there is no basis to that claim. His body has never been found, and he's not been found alive, and she claims that this came from the Texas Search and Rescue group, but there's zero record of them stating this. So this is just her trying to say, move on, everybody. Yeah. This man's not in Cook County anymore. Oh, she also stated in her online publication, however, at this time, the investigation has revealed that Brandon was hiding in the bushes due to a felony warrant, watching Deputy Neal speak to Kyle Lawson. And this was all based off of Kyle's incorrect assumption that Brandon was hiding in the bushes when the cop was there because he was unaware that Brandon had called 911. So she wrote that in her paper as fact, which that is ridiculous.
Yep.
I mean, what the hell, dude? I just cannot even stand this lady. I mean, what a hag.
She almost is like, hey, good riddance. Get out of my town, county, you drug addict. But come on, lady. Like, this is someone's, like we said before, this is their life and not just his life is being affected.
And regardless of whether he's a drug addict, like she wants to talk about constantly or not, he deserves to be assisted by the police if he needs help. Like, that doesn't make you you're just not even worthy of being treated as a human being. That's ridiculous. So regardless of what she wants to say, he called 911 asking for help, and anyone that was at the scene that wasn't Brandon shouldn't be able to sway the investigation one way or the other with what they say, Exactly. He called asking for help, period. She went on a social media rampage after the disappearance where she was on Facebook, his Facebook Missing Brandon Lawson Facebook page. She went on Web Sleuths. She went Dateline, NBC, their message board. She was calling him a drug addict and that he was running from a warrant. And she on Web Sleuths she was offering publicly to private message people who had any interest in the case to fill them in on his quote-unquote condition at the time of his disappearance, claiming that she didn't want Ledessa to read it publicly, but she had this inside scoop on Brandon's condition the night he went missing.
Which I want to know why she's so passionate about this and why she's taking it upon herself to do these things. And
that's totally weird.
This behavior is not normal.
No, and also any information about Brandon's quote-unquote condition that night are all speculation and hearsay unless she has somebody that spoke to him or came in contact with him that night that we all just haven't ever heard of before because we don't know what the heck was going on out there.
Yep.
So she is basically slandering his name publicly, left and right, as the wife of the sheriff and the owner and operator of the only newspaper in town, basically maligning him at every turn. And I just can't even imagine what her motive is with doing that. What in the heck is she thinking? I just don't get it. So she stated again publicly, what's new, that Brandon could not have gone more than 100 yards in his quote-unquote condition, which is total crap. We heard his call. We heard that what he was saying, that he was asking for police. His phone pinged 3 miles away. I don't want to hear he was so inebriated or intoxicated, whatever drug euphemism you want to use, that he couldn't go 100 yards. We hear his voice, lady, we can hear him saying things. It's not like he's mumbling completely incoherently. I mean, why is this lady the wife of the Coke County Sheriff's Department spreading misinformation at every turn? What is her point?
She's just trying to slaughter his character, his condition. I mean, if you were on meth or whatever, not that I've ever done it or that I'm an expert, but if you were on meth, from what I've seen, wouldn't you be able to run?
Yeah, you would. You would.
I mean,
you would be able to do a lot of things. And most people aren't going to have just like this utter freak out. Like people want to say like he just freaked out because there's this, I'm sure you remember that case of this couple that did meth and drove out in the snow years and years ago. It was a blizzard and they got lost and their car broke down. They were on meth and they called, they were incoherent, calling the cops saying there were like people that weren't talking to them and there were actually cows and they both ended up like walking off of a cliff.
Yeah.
That's not the situation here.
No.
Brandon wasn't some noob. He had done meth before. He got clean, but I don't think that means that if he did it again, that he would call the cops on himself and be imagining things and running from nothing.
That's a state of narcotic psychosis, which is clearly not the case here.
No.
If you've ever heard someone or seen someone on that, it's very frightening and they make absolutely no sense.
To me, she's trying to cover something up, whether it's just negligence on the police department's part or what. Also, did law enforcement not run Brandon's plates whenever they arrived to his car? That's a question I would like to know as well. Melinda McCutcheon, claims that there was no probable cause for them to run his plates, but there was an abandoned vehicle parked haphazardly on the road and it's 1 a.m. and supposedly Deputy Neal was alone. It's 1 a.m. You're coming on a car parked kind of weird, still hanging in the road. You're not going to run the plates before you get out of your car.
Isn't that the first thing that they do is run
I think
plates?
they do that every time. Like if you get pulled over, no matter what. I know it wasn't pulled over, but I just think this guy's going to run his plates.
Yeah.
And they're claiming he didn't.
I don't know if that's just like standard protocol, but I think it's almost a safety precaution to see who you possibly could be dealing with in the middle of the night on a vacant highway.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it makes no sense?
Would he not call for backup either? I mean, I just don't know. I think it's so strange and I don't get the way they handled this. I almost am wondering, did he run his plates? They find out that he has a warrant and they're like, he's running and that's it. That's why they treated it just from the get-go. So whatever. It totally was handled incorrectly. And there are a million discrepancies in the various reports from the sheriff department themselves, Melinda McCutcheon in her newspaper, and there's another newspaper in the town, San Angelo, that has one account that's different than all the others. So there was a time whenever Sheriff McCutcheon stated that 2 deputies arrived on the scene. It was Deputy Neal and another deputy. Then in San Angelo Live on September 24th, 2013, they state that at about 1 a.m. a call was made to 911 in Coke County. It said the vehicle ran out of gas on 277 south of Bront and deputy responded, found vehicle but not Brandon, and it was only 1 deputy. I don't know why there's a discrepancy there, but there is. So yeah. Either the person at the nursing home didn't forward his call at all, she didn't forward it correctly to emphasize the nature of his actual call, which was, I need help.
Yeah.
Or did they just brush it off because he had previous drug charges and they were being, assholes? So if the 911 call was dispatched without finding the name of the caller, then why would Deputy Neal not run his license plate when he came to the truck, Which we discussed. You needed to identify whose it is.
Exactly. Even, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I think even if a cop comes up behind you in a red light, I swear to God, they're running your plate just because.
Yeah. Like, might as well.
Maybe that's just me being paranoid, but I don't know.
And again, why has the police department not submitted that call to FBI? Are they just doing it out of negligence in the investigation? Are they trying to cover something up, like an edited call? Either something in the call that happened that the police don't want the public to hear, something that implicates somebody of something, or some sort of negligence recorded in the call. Is there something in that call that they don't want anyone to know, and thus they have only released parts of it to Ledessa, who then recorded it?
Right. Well, which would, again, I do think it's very strange that they had her record the recording instead of just...
Well, they didn't have her record it. She did it without them knowing, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that means that they wouldn't give her a copy then, right? Like she had to take it in her own hands to get a hold of it?
She had to just record it with her phone, is what they claim.
Okay.
Was there an error in that they did not get the call or that they didn't get it correctly? Are they just negligent and guilty of not treating the situation with the severity it deserved due to Brandon's past, making assumptions and in turn making it so that now 5 years later, the family still is without answers about what happened to Brandon?
Seriously, and like this isn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
5 years is, it's a long time for his family to not have answers, but it's only 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Cases have been solved much longer after the crime has been committed.
Oh yeah.
Or are they covering up something more insidious that happened that night and something that, either corruption or legal activity by the police or somebody in the county, the state, something? I just don't know. Either way, Brandon's case was not handled as it should have been handled on multiple counts by multiple different people who should have been there to help protect and serve him, and they did not do that. He asked for help to the 911 operator and went missing and has never been seen again. I mean, you call 911 expecting assistance, Yeah, but I mean, like we said earlier, they essentially have stopped searching for Brandon altogether. Even though the family has been really vocal about the fact that he could have been miles away and that there was a cell phone ping, that they should be searching the radius around that, and they haven't done anything. They want to use drones, and they're saying that the terrain is kind of difficult to actually search on foot, but the police department doesn't want to put any effort towards that either. And the sheriff himself at times definitely did seem like he had concern for the family. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn about him. There are times when he seems like he's really concerned, and then
you want him to be a good guy, but then again, you gotta wonder, like, he is the sheriff. He did say, I don't want this three-ring circus in my county. But then again, if he was a good guy, why wouldn't he try to be, like, getting these searches approved and even helping out in them?
To boot, his wife is going around slandering Brandon's name and trying to make sure everybody knows about his past, and he's a missing person that essentially called her husband for help and did not receive it. So, like, his wife makes it look really suspicious on the sheriff's department side, It really doesn't color them in a good light, because she especially sounds like a crazy lunatic that's, like, on, like, some sort of mission to make sure everybody knows that her husband didn't do anything wrong because Brandon had a history of criminal activity.
Well, shoot, what would happen if everybody just kind of like dismissed us and our needs and wants and everything like that just because we had like a history?
Right. I mean, everybody has some sort of part of their past that they're not thrilled by. So if we were all judged by that, it would be really crappy. And I don't think anybody would get assistance by police then, because there's like, I don't really understand how you can take a look at all the facts of this story, as vague as some of them may be, and immediately you're like just trying to blame Brandon for his disappearance when it's clear he was in trouble and asking for help from the police. Like we have already talked about, Brandon being on the run from the cops or hiding from the cops or whatever is not valid in our opinion in any way whatsoever. Like we said, he called 911 requesting the police. He's not going to do that if he's going to hide from those very same people. That does not make sense.
Okay, so we've brought out like he didn't cut off communication with people from his home when he had left. So again, that theory of how he just wanted to disappear and leave makes absolutely no sense. And again, there was no activity on his bank account, no activity on his cell phone afterwards. So I mean, this guy just got up, walked out, and had money to have hotels to get his new life started. No, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Right. With no trace of him ever again.
Yep.
Ledessa said that they had a lawyer lined up. They were going to take care of his warrant. It wasn't something he was just trying to like run from for the rest of his life. It was something he was ready to take care of. He got his new job. He was, looking forward to had gotten clean for over a year. It was like he's moving on and up in the world. And unfortunately, some tragic thing happened out in the middle of nowhere that night.
It was just clear to me that he was trying to have a second chance at life and to do things right and to be the father that he knew he needs to be the husband that he knew he needed to be the citizen that he knew he needed to be, especially in this small town when everybody's going to know your business.
Yeah.
I mean,
so what did happen that night? We can't really be sure. We can speculate, and there are theories galore. A lot of them don't really make a lot of sense, but something happened where in the a very short window, 15 to 20-minute window, after he called his brother telling him he needed him to pick him up to go get gas, something happened. Either he walked from his car and got picked up by somebody, or he waited by his car, but somebody came along and picked him up. Something happened that made him afraid enough and desperate for help enough to call the cops,
Yeah.
And whatever that was, we do not know.
I'm kind of leaning towards, he could have been walking away from his car to try to find a gas station or something, and he happened upon something that he shouldn't have.
Yeah. And that's what he meant when he's like, I accidentally ran into him.
Ran into them. Yeah. Or maybe, and then, they got or shot the first guy. Maybe they were messing with some other person, and maybe he was the second guy that they were going after.
Yeah.
And he knew that his life was in danger at that point.
And he maybe was able to hide from them, put off calling 911 for a second. And then once he did, they heard his voice or they saw a light from his phone. And then you hear that car coming up on him. Maybe there was a person out of that car. Who knows how many people there were. I just don't know.
That's the part that gives me goosebumps is I feel like that car noise is the person he was running from coming up, and that's when the call in. So it's
right.
That's where Brandon's life ends too.
Right.
And what the cops are trying to cover up, I don't know. I don't know if there was a cop there that night. Maybe there was shady dealings with them as well.
Yeah.
But to me, the end of that call is just so ominous.
Yeah.
And the last noises you hear is the operator, hello, hello, and those three noises, and never again from Brandon.
Right. It's definitely scary to think about, and it really kills me to think that how afraid he was. Oh, but you know what? Actually, now that we have to just go into that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He called his brother again after this 911 call, so that wasn't the end of his life because his brother was called by him after that. So maybe he was just hiding and then again, maybe got away from somebody or trying to hide from someone still that was kind of out looking for him, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's so confusing. What really happened? I don't know. I don't think he abandoned his family. I don't think he was hiding from anyone. I think he came across something or somebody, and whether that's a serial killer trolling the highway late at night for victims or people conducting legal activities and they need to take out this witness that is Brandon who accidentally stumbled upon them. Those are the most, to me, the most, or he was running from someone, got injured, perished in one of these areas, and because they haven't searched well enough, haven't found his body. Or there's the other theory is that a landowner did something to him and then buried him on their property, which, it's such when you look at which we'll post some photos of the area where his truck was and then the area where he could be. And it's a really vast, these aren't tiny property lots. This is a big lot, So it's not even a lot. It's actual land. I just don't know if anybody was out walking their land at 1 a.m. to just, unless they were hunting or something.
There's a law though. You can only hunt from I don't know if Texas, but in Idaho, you can only hunt from sunlight to sundown. You can't hunt at night. But I don't know about Texas because I don't know if they do night hog hunts or something. But
yeah, I think you're not supposed to shoot stuff on your property necessarily here, but people do. It's because no one's calling the cops because anybody heard a shotgun. So it's possible that people were out hunting and maybe he came across some people, but I don't know why, unless they were serial killers or something like that. I don't see why they would be so concerned. If you're out illegally hunting, you're not going to kill a human being because he saw you. So So who knows what really happened? But I think we both kind of lean towards he came across something he shouldn't have seen. That's why he was like, I accidentally ran into him, and you could tell it was kind of like, damn it. Like, you know, like if I only hadn't have run into him, I shouldn't have run into him. And then something happened that made him fear for his life. And that's the last that we have heard of him. So like I said, I'm going to file another FOIA request and see if I can get any extra documents on this case to see that if it helps clear anything up. We would love to come back and have actually some answers for anybody, you know, in the family or anything. But as it stands, I think that's pretty much where we end with Brandon.
I think that's all we're going to get, really. I mean, there's not much else to go off of. There's no evidence. There's no clothing. There's no blood. There's no footprints.
No keys, no phone, nothing. I really hope that we can come back and have some sort of closure, and whether we bring it or not, I really wish that his family would get closure.
Oh, totally. And again, that's why I podcast, and especially, you know, I know we like to keep bringing these cases up because I think it's really sad.
I'm pretty sure your chickens are going
Can
crazy.
You hear them?
Yeah.
They're so stupid. I think one of them's probably laying an egg, but so yeah, I mean, to let these cases go completely cold and to let them just kind of die out. That's how people get away with murder, essentially.
Yeah. So that's where we're going to end it for now. Part 2 is going to come one day. I just know it. So I am waiting for that.
Hang in there.
Yeah. Okay, so
we'll get those links up. We're really excited to hear from you guys about what you think about this case and the phone call, especially since nobody can really decide what was said or agree on what was said. Everybody has their different opinions on it. So.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us and subscribing to the podcast. We have gotten a bunch of new listeners lately. We're super excited by how we're growing and are excited to do more of that. We would love to start a group on Facebook where we could discuss the cases that we cover, and everybody that listens could come and discuss the cases we cover. So I wanted to start that up, and I would love it if you guys could join us there. I will. Our Facebook is just Creep It Real. You can search for us on Facebook, and from there you'll be able to find my posts whenever I create that group. So join us there. You can find us on Twitter at Creep It Real Pod and Instagram at Creep It Real Pod. You can also email us at creepitrealpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Please don't underestimate how much it helps us for you guys to subscribe and to give us 5 stars on the whatever app you listen to us on. It helps us really big time.
Yep, a small gesture.
Yeah.
You don't know how far it goes.
Yeah.
So, and tell your friends about it. If you really like us, post about it, please.
Yeah.
That's like a huge thing. The more followers and listeners we can get, the better content we could provide, the better research we can do. So
it really just helps us reach a broader audience. And so we really appreciate it. Keep that up. And if you haven't shared anything about the podcast, please do it. I'll stop asking you for stuff now and leave it up to you here. We will see you next week.
Oh yeah, we will be back next week, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll catch y'all on the flip side.
Creep it real.
Bye.